The night sky over Earth was calm. Stars shined quietly, unaware that something beyond imagination was watching. High above the planet, hidden behind the shadow of the moon, an alien ship floated in silence. It was massive, shaped like a dark crescent, its surface covered with strange glowing symbols. No human telescope could see it. No radar could track it. It was a ghost in the sky. Inside the ship, the aliens gathered in a great chamber. Their tall figures stood around a round table of light. Their voices were sharp, metallic, and emotionless. For countless years they had traveled the galaxy, studying different species, measuring their strength and deciding which civilizations could be controlled. To them, fear was always the key. Every species they had met had fear. Fear made them predictable. Fear made them weak. And weakness made them easy to dominate. But now their attention had turned to Earth. Humans were different. They were fragile in body, small in power compared to other creatures of the galaxy. Yet somehow they survived. Somehow they fought wars greater than their strength should allow. Somehow they stood after disasters that should have destroyed them. To the aliens, this was strange. They wanted to understand. They wanted to know why humans acted as if fear was nothing. One of the alien leaders leaned forward. His eyes glowed like fire trapped in crystal. "These creatures are irrational," he said in his cold voice. "We have observed their history. They fight even when defeat is certain. They laugh in the face of danger. It is unnatural. No species can exist without fear, unless," his voice dropped lower, "unless they are hiding something we do not yet understand." The others murmured in agreement. They had seen images of humans sending fragile machines into the dark of space. They had seen humans climb mountains where death was certain. They had seen humans face weapons, storms, diseases, and still move forward. The aliens did not call it bravery. To them, bravery was logical only when survival was possible. But humans showed something else, something reckless, something that defied logic. The leader gave his order. A test must be done. They would not destroy humans yet. First, they would take a small group, bring them aboard, and expose them to their worst fears. Then the truth would be revealed. Either humans were fearless because they were foolish, or because they carried something dangerous inside them. Deep inside the ship, machines awakened. A beam of white energy prepared. Down below on Earth, in a quiet town, a few humans walked through the night. They had no idea that eyes from the stars were fixed upon them. A man walking home from work, a woman carrying groceries, two friends laughing on the street. They were ordinary, unimportant in the eyes of the world. But to the aliens, they were chosen. They would be the first subjects of the test. Without warning, the sky above them split with light. It was not lightning. It was not any plane or star they had seen before. It was a beam that swallowed them whole. In less than a breath, they were gone. No trace was left behind. Only silence remained, as if nothing had ever happened. Back on the ship, the humans awoke inside a chamber. The walls were alive with shifting colors, pulsing like a living heart. They looked around in confusion, their voices echoing in the strange air. "Where are we?" one of them whispered. Fear should have filled the room. That was what the aliens expected. But instead, the humans stood together, eyes searching, trying to understand, not collapsing in terror. High above, the aliens observed from their hidden chamber. Their glowing eyes studied every movement. "Now," one said. "Now we will see what lies within them." The humans had been chosen, but the real experiment had just begun. The ship was ready to reveal nightmare after nightmare. The aliens believed fear would break them. The aliens believed fear would show their weakness. Yet deep inside, a shadow of doubt already formed. Because what if fear did not break humans at all? What if it made them stronger? And so the first test began. The fate of humanity was unknown. But for the aliens, one truth was already rising like a dark star. Humans were not like any other species they had ever faced. The chamber was silent except for the sound of human breathing. The four people stood close to each other, unsure where they were. The walls around them shifted like liquid metal, forming strange shapes and colors. The air felt heavy, as if the room itself was alive. A young man named Daniel touched the wall. It was cold, yet it moved under his hand like water. He pulled back quickly, his eyes wide. "This is not Earth," he whispered. Beside him, a woman named Sarah looked around carefully. Her voice was calm but firm. "Someone brought us here. Someone is watching." She was right. High above, hidden behind a transparent wall of energy, the aliens stood and observed. Their tall frames did not move. Their glowing eyes studied every reaction. They expected panic. They expected screams. They expected humans to break. But what they saw was confusion mixed with determination. The alien commander turned to his scientists. Begin the first illusion. Show them what they fear most. With a gesture, the room changed. The walls melted away and transformed into a dark forest. The humans were no longer in a chamber. They were standing on wet ground covered with fog. The air smelled of rotting leaves. The trees were tall and twisted, their branches stretching like claws. Somewhere in the distance, a low growl echoed. The humans froze for a moment. Then one of them, an older man named Peter, gave a nervous laugh. A forest? Is this some kind of trick? I've seen scarier things on TV. But the growl came again, louder this time. Something moved in the shadows. Yellow eyes appeared between the trees. Shapes of beasts slowly circled them, their bodies hidden in the fog. The aliens leaned closer, waiting. Now, one whispered. Now they will scream. But instead, Sarah stepped forward. Her voice was steady. Stay together. Whatever this is, it's not real. It wants us to panic, Daniel nodded quickly. His hands trembled, but he forced himself to smile. If it's not real, then it can't hurt us. Right? The beasts emerged from the fog. They were massive creatures. Half wolf, half shadow, with teeth like knives and eyes burning with hunger. They surrounded the humans, their growls shaking the ground. For a second, the humans hesitated. The fear was real. The danger felt real, but none of them ran. Instead, Peter grabbed a fallen branch from the ground and held it like a weapon. If it's a fight they want, then let's give them one. The aliens whispered in confusion. This was not the reaction they had predicted. Other species always begged for mercy, always collapsed under fear. But humans faced the danger head-on, even when escape seemed impossible. The beasts attacked. The humans fought with whatever they could find, branches, stones, even their bare fists. Every time one beast fell, it dissolved into smoke, but more kept coming. Yet the humans did not stop. They shouted. They pushed each other to keep moving, and they stood back to back against the monsters. From above, the alien commander clenched his jaw. They do not understand this is illusion, yet they resist. Why? The scientist beside him answered, his voice low. They do not fight because they think they can win. They fight because it is their nature. They fight because giving up is worse than dying. The commander's eyes narrowed. Increase the pressure. Show them their deepest fear. The forest dissolved. The humans blinked and suddenly found themselves in a collapsing building. The walls cracked. The ceiling groaned. Flames burst out from broken windows. The ground shook as explosions echoed in the distance. It was a war zone filled with smoke and fire. Daniel coughed as dust filled his lungs. He looked around desperately. This looks like a city under attack. Sarah grabbed his arm. Don't lose focus. Remember, it's not real. But the illusion was powerful. They could feel the heat of the flames, hear the screams of invisible people, and smell the burning air. Fear crawled into their minds. Yet even here, something strange happened. Instead of collapsing, the humans began to organize. Sarah pointed to a path through the fire. Peter used his strength to clear fallen beams. Daniel, though shaking, helped guide the others with surprising courage. They moved as a unit, not as individuals. The aliens watched in silence. What they saw was not panic, but cooperation. Not weakness, but resilience. The humans were adapting. At last, the illusion ended. The fire vanished, the screams faded, and the humans stood once again inside the chamber of shifting walls. They were exhausted, bruised, and covered in sweat, but they were alive. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. If that was supposed to scare us, he said with a tired grin, they'll have to do better. Sarah looked up, her eyes sharp. She knew someone was watching. She raised her voice, speaking into the empty air. Whoever you are, you won't break us. Fear is not enough. In the observation room, silence filled the alien chamber. The commander's glowing eyes narrowed. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he had never felt before. It was not anger. It was not confusion. It was something far more dangerous. It was doubt. The test had just begun, and already the humans were not acting like any other species. The question now burned brighter than ever. Why do humans fear nothing? The chamber of the alien ship grew darker. Lines of blue light moved across the walls as if the ship itself was thinking. The commander stood tall, his crystal eyes glowing in the dim light. Around him, other alien leaders and scientists gathered. Their faces showed no emotion, but their silence carried weight. Something about the humans was not fitting into their calculations. The commander raised his hand. A circle of light appeared in the middle of the room, showing the images of Earth. Oceans, mountains, cities, and people filled the glowing sphere. "We must understand," he said in a cold voice. "Why do these creatures not fear?" The scientists stepped closer. One of them touched the sphere and the images changed. Now it showed human history. Wars, battles, fires, storms, diseases, and endless chaos passed before their glowing eyes. Every century seemed to bring destruction, yet every century also showed survival. The first image was of ancient humans, weak and small, facing giant beasts. Instead of running, they hunted together using fire and sharp stones. Another image showed humans building villages near dangerous rivers, even when floods destroyed their homes again and again. Then came wars. Armies of humans fighting each other with weapons made from metal, fire, and machines. The blood spilled was beyond count, yet their species only grew stronger. The aliens spoke in low voices. They destroy each other, yet they survive. They face death, yet they continue. This is not logic. This is something else. The commander's gaze did not leave the glowing sphere. His voice cut through the silence. They do not fear death the way other species do. They walk into danger with no guarantee of victory. They fight even when there is no hope. This is not the absence of fear. This is the refusal of fear. Another scientist activated a different sequence. The sphere now showed humans climbing high mountains covered in ice. Thin bodies struggling against storms, hands bleeding against stone, yet step by step they climbed higher. At the top they raised their arms, not for survival but for triumph. The aliens stared. Why would they risk their lives for nothing but height? One asked. The scientist replied, because to them victory itself has meaning. Pain becomes pride. Fear becomes fuel. The images shifted again. Humans crossing oceans in fragile wooden ships, storms tearing at their sails. Many ships sank, yet others reached new lands. Humans built cities where none should stand. They stepped into deserts with no water, into jungles filled with poison, and into skies with machines that should never fly. Then came the final images. Rockets leaving Earth, flames burning as fragile machines pushed into the blackness of space. Aliens leaned forward in shock. They step into the void itself? One whispered. Yes, the scientist answered. They looked at the endless dark and still moved forward. For the first time, the chamber was silent. No one spoke. The truth was spreading through them like fire. The commander finally turned to his council. Do you not see? These humans are not fearless because they lack fear. They are fearless because they have learned to use it. Their fear does not chain them. It drives them. It pushes them to fight, to explore, to survive. Another alien hissed softly. That is dangerous. If they rise into the stars, no empire will stop them. They will spread and nothing will hold them back. The council shifted uneasily. Most species could be controlled by showing them their deepest terror. Fear always broke them, but humans were different. Fear made them stronger. Fear made them unpredictable. One of the scientists spoke again. Perhaps it is time to end the tests. Perhaps it is time to destroy them before they become a threat. But the commander raised his hand sharply. His voice was like iron. No, destruction will teach us nothing. Knowledge is the key. We must know how far they can go. We must push them further. Only then will we see the truth of what they are. The aliens around him did not argue. They knew the commander's word was final. But in the back of their minds, a thought began to grow. What if humans were not prey? What if they were predators hiding in fragile shells? The glowing sphere dimmed. The chamber returned to silence. The humans below still rested, unaware of the great eyes studying them, unaware that their very nature was shaking the beliefs of an ancient empire. The commander whispered softly, though his voice carried across the whole chamber. If they fear nothing, then we may have awakened something the galaxy will regret. And so the next test was prepared. The aliens believed they were still in control. But already a shadow of doubt spread through their hearts. Humans had shown something no other species had shown before, and the question still remained sharper than ever. Why do humans fear nothing? The humans woke up again, but this time the chamber was gone. Around them stretched endless walls of black stone, glowing with strange red lights. The floor was rough, cold under their bare feet. Narrow tunnels opened in every direction like the jaws of some giant beast. The air smelled of metal and dust. It was a maze, alive and endless. Sarah looked around, her eyes sharp. "This is another test," she whispered. Peter rubbed the back of his neck, frowning. "Feels like a prison. Only worse." Daniel tried to stay calm, but his voice shook. "They want us to get lost. They want us to panic," and he was right. High above, in the hidden chamber, the alien commander and his council watched closely. Their eyes glowed as they studied every movement. One of the scientists hissed, "The maze has no true exit. It shifts and changes with their steps. Traps, illusions, predators, they will break soon." The commander nodded slowly. "If they do not, then we must accept the truth. Fear does not weaken them." The humans stepped forward together. The tunnels closed behind them like doors sealing shut. There was no way back, only forward. The first challenge came quickly. The tunnel split into two paths. From one path came the sound of rushing water. From the other came a faint light. Daniel pointed toward the light. "Maybe that's the way out," but Sarah shook her head. "Too easy. They want us to follow it." Peter listened to the water. "If we can hear it, maybe there's a river. Water means life." In the end, they chose the darker path with the sound of water. The walls pressed close around them and the ground shook under their feet. Suddenly, the floor split open. A wide pit appeared, filled with fire. Flames roared up, blocking the way. Daniel stumbled back in fear. "We can't cross that." But Peter narrowed his eyes. He picked up a long piece of broken metal lying near the wall, testing its weight. "No pit is endless," he said calmly. He touched the fire with the metal rod. To their surprise, the flames bent away like smoke. They were not real. "It's another illusion," Sarah said quickly. "Go through." Together they stepped forward. The fire roared louder, but it did not burn them. In seconds, the illusion vanished, and they stood on solid ground again. Above them, the aliens spoke in disbelief. They broke the illusion too quickly. They did not freeze. They did not surrender. The commander's glowing eyes narrowed. "Increase the danger. Show them something that cannot be ignored." The maze shifted again. The humans turned a corner and froze. In front of them stood creatures with sharp claws and glowing eyes, taller than any human. Their bodies were twisted, their teeth dripping black liquid. The monsters roared and charged. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. Fear gripped him, but Sarah shouted, "Stay together!" Peter swung the metal rod like a weapon, striking one creature in the chest. To their shock, it fell back with a scream. Another creature lunged at Sarah, but she ducked and threw a sharp stone into its face. Daniel, trembling, grabbed a loose piece of wall and smashed it down on a third. The monsters dissolved into black smoke. One by one, they disappeared. Daniel fell to his knees, panting. "I thought they were real. I thought we were finished." Sarah pulled him up. "That's what they want. They want us to believe we're finished. Never give them what they want." In the chamber above, the scientists were whispering. "They fight as if the monsters are real. They do not give up even when their fear is strongest." The commander stood silently. His eyes glowed brighter than ever. "They are not fearless. They feel fear, but they refuse to kneel to it. Their minds are dangerous." The humans moved deeper into the maze. The walls shifted behind them, but they no longer hesitated. Every trap that appeared, falling rocks, rivers of fire, swarms of insects, they faced together. Every illusion only made them stronger. Every danger only taught them to trust each other more. At last, after what felt like hours, they reached the heart of the maze. A wide chamber opened before them, filled with blinding light. In the center stood a tall structure of shining crystal. It pulsed like a heart, sending waves of energy through the air. Sarah stared at it. "This must be the core of the test." Peter raised his weapon. "Then let's end it." Before they could move, a voice filled the chamber. It was not human. It was cold, metallic, and endless. "You have survived the maze. But survival is not enough. Tell us, why do you not fear?" The humans looked up, their eyes burning with defiance. Sarah stepped forward. Her voice was steady, clear, and strong. "We do fear. But fear doesn't stop us. Fear drives us to fight. Fear reminds us what we must protect. You can throw every nightmare at us, but we will always stand. That is who we are." For the first time in centuries, the alien council fell silent. The truth of her words echoed through their minds. And in that silence, the commander whispered to himself, "If this is true, then humans are more dangerous than we imagined." The chamber of the alien ship was silent. The humans stood before the shining crystal core, their breaths heavy, their bodies tired, but their eyes alive with fire. They had survived every trap. They had faced every nightmare. Yet they still stood together. Above them, The alien council watched. Their glowing eyes did not blink. Their minds were filled with calculations that no longer made sense. The commander's voice finally broke the silence. This should not be possible. Every species breaks. Every species surrenders when fear grows too great. Why not them? The scientists searched for answers, replaying the humans' actions. They saw Daniel shaking in terror, yet still striking back. They saw Sarah shouting courage into her companions even when her own eyes showed fear. They saw Peter laughing in the face of illusions that could kill him. One scientist whispered, "They are not without fear. They feel it deeply, but they do not collapse. They fight with it. They carry it like a weapon." The commander turned sharply. Fear cannot be a weapon. Fear is weakness. Fear is control. Another scientist disagreed. For every species we have conquered, that is true. But humans, they are different. Their fear burns, yet it does not consume them. It pushes them forward. The council chamber filled with uneasy murmurs. For centuries, the aliens had ruled because they understood fear. They had crushed civilizations by showing them their deepest nightmares. But now, standing before them were fragile creatures who did not bow to nightmares. Instead, they grew stronger. The commander raised his hand. "Show me more." The glowing sphere in the chamber lit up again. It showed more of human history. Armies charging into battle against impossible odds. Families rebuilding homes after earthquakes and floods. Explorers stepping onto frozen lands with no chance of return. Soldiers running into fire not to save themselves, but to save others. The aliens stared at the images in silence. To them, it was madness, yet it was also power. Finally, the commander spoke in a low voice. "They are dangerous not because they lack fear, but because they accept it. They fight not in spite of fear, but because of it. Fear is their strength." The words echoed through the council like thunder. Back in the maze chamber, the humans still stood tall, unaware of the conversation above. Sarah placed her hand on the crystal. It pulsed with light as if responding to her touch. Daniel stepped beside her, his voice steady now. "If they want to know why we don't break, we should tell them." Sarah nodded and spoke louder, her voice carrying through the chamber. "You asked us why we do not fear. The truth is we do. We fear pain, we fear loss, we fear death, but fear does not control us. Fear teaches us what matters. Fear tells us what we must protect. Fear makes us human." The walls vibrated. The aliens heard every word. The commander's hands clenched, his glowing eyes burning brighter. For the first time in centuries, he did not feel superior. He felt something he had never known before. It was not anger. It was not hatred. It was something worse. It was respect. The scientist beside him spoke carefully. "Commander, if they spread into the stars, no empire will stop them. No weapon of fear will hold them back. They will fight, and they will keep fighting, even when there is no hope." The commander did not reply at once. His mind was heavy with thought. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but none like this. None that turned fear itself into strength. He whispered finally, "Perhaps the galaxy is not ready for them. Perhaps we are not ready for them." Below, the humans stood together in silence. The maze began to dissolve around them, the walls melting away until only a flat chamber remained. They were not sure if they had won, or if the test was simply over. But they knew one thing: they had not broken. Daniel looked around and gave a small, tired laugh. "If they wanted to scare us, they'll need to try harder." Peter smiled grimly. "Something tells me we've scared them instead." And Sarah, her eyes sharp and unyielding, looked upward at the invisible watchers. "If you're listening, know this. We will never kneel to fear. Not yours, not anyone's." Above, the alien commander's gaze hardened. His final words echoed through the council chamber like a warning carved into stone. Humans are not fearless because they lack fear. They are fearless because they rise above it. And if they rise into the galaxy, nothing will ever be the same. The silence that followed was heavier than any weapon. The revelation was complete. The aliens finally understood. Humans were not weak. Humans were not prey. Humans were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. The walls of the chamber faded until nothing was left but cold, silver floors and smooth black walls. The humans stood close together, breathing hard. Their clothes were torn, their bodies sore, but their eyes still burned with determination. They had survived every trap, every illusion, and every nightmare. But now the silence felt strange. Too quiet, too heavy. Daniel broke it with a nervous laugh. "Do you think it's over?" Sarah shook her head slowly. "No. This isn't the end. They're watching us, they always are." Peter clenched his fists. "Then let's give them something to watch." High above, in the alien command chamber, the council still stood in silence. The revelation of Part 5 had shaken them deeply, but the commander was not finished. His voice was sharp as steel. "If fear cannot control them, then perhaps knowledge will. They are inside our ship, surrounded by technology they cannot understand. They are still only animals." Yet even as he spoke, something unexpected began. In the chamber below, Daniel had knelt beside the wall. His fingers traced over strange glowing lines of alien symbols. He tilted his head, studying them. "These patterns, they look like circuits. Maybe controls." Sarah frowned. "You don't even know what they mean." Daniel gave a crooked smile. "I don't need to know the language. Patterns are patterns, machines are machines. If this is a system, I can break it." He pressed his hand against the glowing lines, and the symbols shifted. The floor beneath them trembled. The walls flickered with light. Above, alarms rang through the alien council chamber. One of the scientists snapped his head toward the commander. "Impossible. They're touching the core systems." The commander growled, his eyes flaring. "Block them. Shut the chamber down." But it was too late. Daniel had already triggered something. The walls around the humans flickered again and melted away, revealing long corridors filled with pulsing light. Strange machines floated silently, scanning the air. The ship's heart was now open to them. Sarah grabbed Daniel's arm. "Do you know what you just did?" Daniel shrugged with a shaky grin. "Not really, but if they can play games with us, why can't we play back?" The humans stepped into the corridor cautiously. The air hummed with power. They could feel the ship's energy vibrating beneath their feet. Peter's eyes narrowed. "If this is their ship, then there has to be a control center, maybe even a way out." The humans began to move, keeping close to the walls, hiding whenever the floating machines passed. They had no weapons, no armor, no real knowledge of alien technology. But they had something else. Instinct, survival, and the will to fight. In the council chamber, the aliens watched in disbelief. "They are navigating our ship," one scientist whispered, "as if it is natural to them." "They improvise," another said, his voice sharp. "They adapt too quickly. It is not knowledge. It is instinct." The commander's voice was cold, but inside he felt a weight he had never known before. Instinct or not, they are breaking into places no creature has ever reached. If they reach the control core— He stopped. Even he did not want to finish that sentence. Meanwhile, the humans found themselves before a tall door, glowing with blue energy. Strange symbols pulsed across its surface. Sarah placed her hand against it. The door hummed, then slid open with a hiss. Inside was a vast chamber filled with spirals of light, moving like rivers through the air. Towers of crystal pulsed with power, connected by glowing threads. It was the control core of the ship. Daniel's eyes widened. This is it. This is the brain." Peter stepped forward. "Then let's see if we can hurt it." Daniel touched one of the glowing threads. It burned his hand, but he did not let go. Instead, he gritted his teeth and pulled it free. The thread snapped like a whip of light, and suddenly alarms screamed across the ship. The floor shook violently. Lights flickered. Above, the aliens staggered as their control panels blinked and died. "They're tearing into the core," shouted one of the scientists. The commander's face darkened, his voice was low and heavy. They are not prey. They are predators. They are inside our heart. Back in the core chamber, the humans held their ground as the ship trembled. Machines screamed, energy flared. But instead of running, they stood taller. Daniel, his hand burned, looked back at the others and said with a grin, "Guess we just hacked aliens." Sarah's voice was steady, sharp with defiance. "They wanted to test us. Now it's our turn." The humans had no weapons, no technology, and no plan beyond survival. But already, they were doing the impossible. They were breaking an empire's strongest ship with nothing but courage, instinct, and the refusal to bow to fear. And in the council chamber, for the first time in their long, proud history, the aliens truly understood the meaning of danger. Because humans were not simply surviving. They were fighting back. The alien ship trembled like a wounded beast. Lights flickered across its walls. Alarms screamed through the endless halls, and towers of crystal shook as the humans tore at the ship's core. For the first time in centuries, the proud vessel of the alien council was no longer in control. Inside the control chamber, the aliens struggled to stabilize their systems. Sparks flashed across their panels. Symbols of warning filled the air.